Everyone, what's up? It's Gunnison and welcome back to Spinnin' the Tires. Today we got a very special episode. I will be reviewing all of the Darlington throwback paint schemes from this week. We'll get to that here in a few minutes, but first, just briefly, would like to go over my thoughts and review the Darlington race. So, NASCAR the past few years at Darlington has run their 550 horsepower package at this track. It's produced some great finishes, I'll say, but the overall racing hasn't been exceptional. So NASCAR switched to the 750 horsepower this year, and again, the racing maybe wasn't exceptional. I think some fans they're confused about what they want. They say the 550 horsepower races are boring. They say the 750 horsepower races are boring. No matter what package you have on the car, you're gonna have boring races from time to time. In fact, sometimes they're the majority of a season. It's just how it goes. But I would actually say overall this was a pretty good race. The ending was exciting. Kyle Larson almost caught Martin Truex Jr. in the final laps. He made an amazing three-wide move to try to catch Truex. He just didn't have enough time. Truex got his third win of the season. He's looking to be the championship favorite so far. Second in the point standings and first in the playoff standings. So he's very impressive so far this year. Yeah, Kyle Larson almost caught him. I think a lot of fans were rooting for Larson to catch him, but the first half of the race had several bad wrecks, all of them involving a car sliding down into the inside wall and colliding head on, taking a just nasty impact to the car. The drivers involved were Eric Almirola, Cole Custer, and Kurt Busch, each having very, very similar wrecks in the first two stages. The third stage, there really wasn't any chaos like that, just the battle for the lead and green flag pit stops. What I will say, what was really exciting was seeing the cars with higher horsepower, of course, more out of control. So the drivers were having to correct the wheel a little more off the corners. They were basically drifting out of each turn on each lap of the race, which was kind of cool to see. So overall, not a bad race at all. So don't go complaining about it, because a lot of people have complained about the races there with a different package the past couple of years. So if you didn't like it, that's fine. I mean, it wasn't the most enjoyable race for me. I'd say it's arguably one of the more boring races out of this exciting season, but it wasn't bad. This, in general, I don't think there's been a very bad race this season yet. So yeah, not a bad race. I wasn't all that happy that Martin Truex Jr. won. I kind of wanted Larson to win, but oh well. It's fine. It was a good race. It was fun to watch. It was fun watching the cars be more out of control. Now we move on to Dover, though, for the Dryden 400, and it should be a fun race. Dover, the past few years, has not put on that much of a show. The thing is, that track is high speed, it's short, and it's narrow. You can hit speeds of 130, 40, even 50 on the straightaways, very fast corners as well, and the track is only a mile long. There are also pretty tight walls on either side of the track, so if you spin out, it's very likely you will hit either one of those walls, and then you can deflect off that wall and hit other cars. So when somebody wrecks here at Dover, it gets chaotic. Cars have flipped at Dover. This track's only a mile long. This isn't like a super speedway like Daytona, but cars have flipped here. So, of course, obviously we don't want a lot of cars crashing and people getting hurt, but I hope that this week's race is on the exciting end of things, because it has the potential to produce good racing. As for who wins this week, I think it's going to be either one of the top two finishers from last week, Martin Truex Jr. or Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson, I think this is one of the tracks he's actually won at in previous years with Chip Ganassi Racing. He's shown strength here, and Martin Truex Jr. has won several times here. Both of those guys are strong. Both of them have momentum coming off of top two finishes last week, and I think it's going to be between them again this weekend unless something crazy happens. But yeah, I think it'll be a cool battle between them again. This is the kind of track that suits each of their driving styles, so that'll be fun to watch. I do hope we get a surprise winner, though. We've had a couple of those already this year, and it's been a while since we've had one though, so I'd love to see one. Anyway, let's get right down to reviewing the Darlington paint schemes. So each year at Darlington, NASCAR does their throwback week where they have drivers run special paint schemes. It's entirely up to them which car they want to run. They can throw back to an old brand logo, an old car that a NASCAR legend ran, or not even, it doesn't even have to be NASCAR. It could be Formula One or Indy cars. We'll see with some of these cars later. Yeah, all sorts of cool examples of great throwbacks this year. Let's get right into those. All 37 cars that ran this week. I ranked them all. So we're going to look at each one of those from the worst to the best. So at the end of this video, we will see what I think was the best throwback from Darlington. Okay, so let's take a look at our list here. So earlier this week, I ranked all of these paint schemes, and we're going to take a look at them one by one. So in 37th, we have Kurt Busch. This car, not great, not impressed. It's not a throwback. It's the Monster Energy car he runs each week. I saw a lot of jokes on social media of people saying like, hey Kurt, nice throwback to last week. So just showing you how humorous NASCAR fans can be. But that one goes last. It's not a bad paint scheme. The matte black looks cool. It's just, I can't put it up there because it's not a throwback. Same with this number 20 car that Christopher Bell ran. Again, this is a nice car. It's well designed. Really like the red and black, but it takes 36th because it's not a throwback paint scheme. The 20s had some great throwbacks in years past. I really think they could have done something cool. I mean, they could throw back to something as recent as his record-setting Xfinity Series season a couple years ago, but no, they just ran the blank Rheem water heaters car, so that goes 36th. 35th, this is the first throwback on the list. And this is the race-winning car, but I don't like it. And no NASCAR fan that I've been able to tell likes it. This is supposed to be a throwback to his Furniture Row racing cars from a few years ago. That was a small team based out of Denver, Colorado, here in my home state. And in 2017, they kind of came out of nowhere to win the championship with Martin Truex Jr. And they ran these really cool matte black cars. So with the matte black on this car, I see what they're trying to do, but just nothing about this says Furniture Row Racing. It just doesn't resemble that. So that one had to go near the bottom of the list. Now down in 34th, this one is all marketing. Okay, so this is a pseudo throwback. It's got the Tide on it, which Tide is famous for sponsoring beautiful cars in the NASCAR Cup Series and beyond. And this car really, it's beautiful. Lots of great colors. I like the gradient on the back, but it's not throwing back to anything. And what I don't like about this is Kroger's basically run one car all year with Stenhouse, and they just run a different variation of it each week with a different Kroger brand. So it's just like this week they went with the same car, they just switched the brand to Tide. It's just like the same thing every week. The front of the car is blue, and then the back of the car is the colors of whichever brand. It's a nice car, but it's not a throwback. I could see it running any week but throwback week. So that one, again, a nice car, but it just doesn't fit with the throwback vibe. Now 34th, we have Brad Keselowski, and this is not a bad car. It looks pretty cool. On any average week, I think it would be up near the top of the list, but it's not a throwback. The Freightliner, I love the shine on the Freightliner logo. Really nice, simple, well-designed car. But I'm not going to put non-throwbacks at the top of a throwback car list. And finally, we're getting into the last of the non-throwbacks here. Chris Buescher. Again, this isn't a throwback. I guess you could say it's a throwback to when Ricky Stenhouse got his first win like 4 years ago in the 17, but the fifth third bank colors look really nice on this, but it's not a throwback, so it had to go 32nd. Now that being said, I really do love the design of this car, and it looks pretty sharp. Now next up is the 53. This was J.J. Yaley driving for Rick Ware Racing, and again, not a throwback, but it kind of fits with the vibe. It's it's more of a patriotic, more of what we'd see on 4th of July weekend, almost. But it looks good. It doesn't. It's not a party pooper. It doesn't spoil the throwback vibe, I think. So it's not a bad car. And then finally we have Matt Benedetto. This also isn't a throwback, but with that nice Wood Brothers 21 font there that's been in the sport for like 60 years, they kind of have a throwback every week. So I'll excuse it. It's a really sharp looking car. And now, finally, in 29th, we have our first real throwback, and this is Ricky Stenhouse's teammate, Ryan Preece. His Velveeta throwback to, I don't remember who, I think it was his spotter or crew chief. They used to race in trucks, and this is a throwback to their truck. It looks good, but it is a throwback, but it looks like something that would be designed today. It doesn't exactly look like it's meant to be a throwback scheme, so that's why it's towards the bottom of the throwbacks, but it does look good. I like the red and yellow. Next, in 28th, is the number 18 of Kyle Busch. Nice car, but it looks a bit like his every week M&M's paint scheme. They're celebrating 80 years of M&M's. I guess that's kind of the throwback part of this. You can see the vintage-looking M&M's character on the rear quarter panel. That looks pretty fun, but other than that, it just doesn't scream throwback weekend to me. And then next, we have Bubba Wallace running the 23 Wendell Scott tribute, and this is kind of just a bad attempt at a Wendell Scott tribute. I've seen people do much better throwbacks to him. This is a good idea, it's just bad execution. Scott's car was a little darker blue. There was blue outline around the numbers, not orange. I think part of that was sponsorship deals, which, I'll be honest, I wish sometimes the sponsors were a little more flexible with how they display themselves on the cars for throwback weekend. But yeah, nice car. I mean, the color is beautiful, but it's a cool idea, but it just wasn't quite executed that well. And now, next, 26th, we have Ross Chastain's throwback to Hut Strickland. And from here on up, throwbacks get pretty good. This is a throwback to an old number 27 McDonald's car that ran in the 90s, and I love it. They got the number slant accurate. They got the slant of the McDonald's wording accurate. The McDonald's logo on the hood looks great. It looks really good. And then next in line, right above it, is the number 11's throwback to Slick Johnson. Slick Johnson, what a name. This is a pretty neat car. They got some cool details right, like the slant of the lettering on the back. That's how they did it with the original car they were trying to throw back to, and it looks pretty good. Sport Clips usually hops on board for Hamlin's yearly throwback. It was announced by a fan vote, and there were other paint schemes in the fan vote that I liked better, though. So that's why this is kind of down toward the bottom of the list. And then right next to that is Ryan Blaney, his number 12 Advance Auto Parts car. I think this was a throwback to Blaney's first ever race car when he was a kid. So that one's kind of cool. And then next we have Ryan Newman's car. I think this was a throwback to a sports car championship or something like that. And not gonna lie, it looks good. He was one of the 3 cars involved in that 3-wide pass that Kyle Larson made. That was absolutely crazy. And yeah, the car looks good. I like the blue tones on it. Right above that is the number 48's throwback to Greg Ives, who is the driver, Alex Bowman's crew chief. This car looked good, but it looked good later in the race. Early in the race, when the sun was shining really bright, this thing was just so reflective, just the colors were so bright, it was hard to really, at least on TV, it was hard to look at it and really get it, because it was just so kind of overpowering. But as the race went on, and the sun got a little dimmer and lower in the sky, this thing started really looking good. So yeah, I like it. The teal and pinkish color, it's an interesting one, but I do like it. Then next up is the number 4 of Kevin Harvick. Kevin Harvick ran his first Cup race in the 29, a race after the famous Dale Earnhardt died, and he was the replacement for Earnhardt. He ran a Mobil 1 car with the numbers slanted forward for that first race. So this is what that is a throwback to. It's a good design. There were a few things I and other fans think they could have done to make it a little more accurate, but I like this car, and I gotta say it looked amazing on the track. So yeah, pretty good paint scheme. So I'll give it 21st. Not bad at all. So now moving up in 20th is the number 52. This car unfortunately had some problems during the race, had to go to the garage for a while. But this one's pretty cool. It's a throwback to an old golden Lenny Pond car. It says Insurance King, but I think you see what they're trying to do here. It's a throwback to an old Burger King car, which is pretty cool. The original number of the car was 54, so this isn't too far off from that. The font is correct. They got the Lenny Pond name right below the window. I like that. And this is what I like, is when sponsors do this and they're willing to change their branding to match the original. This car was the first one to wreck out, adding to Eric Almirola's rough season so far. But this was a very nice car. Eric Almirola's throwback to Mark Martin. The original car was number 60, and this car looks fiery. I mean, what else can you use to describe this? It makes me think of summer and 4th of July barbecues. Just gives off that vibe, and I really like it. It's a really well done car, and they actually subtly changed the font of the number to match that of Mark Martin's. So this is an A grade throwback paint scheme, I think. 15 of James Davison. I forget what he was throwing it back to, but this looks, just in general, really good. I like the number font on it. It's another A grade. And then this next one, I think this is the last non-throwback here, but this is really high on the list because it is a super meaningful, really cool car. There's not a great photo of it on track because it wrecked out early, but this is Cole Custer's Happy Mother's Day car, and it was pretty awesome to see this. I love it when teams do this. If they don't run a throwback, they at least run something else that's pretty cool, and this is pretty darn cool. I like the rose detail on it. Looks like some sort of letter on the hood. Really well executed. Great job by the designers at Stewart Haas. Then right above that is the 43. This is Eric Jones's car. Throwing it back to John Andretti, back when he drove for Richard Petty Motorsports. Blue and red, it looks really good. Then up next in 14th, got the 51 of Cody Ware. Again, I forget what they were throwing it back to with this one, but it's very, very well designed. The yellow and the green and blue, the whole just gradient, the fade between those colors is pretty well put together. The number font is very unique, very interesting, but it looks pretty cool. Right above that, 13th, this is one of the best throwbacks in the field. The number 9 of Chase Elliott. This is one of 3 throwbacks to Alan Kulwicki in the field, who built his own team basically from scratch, and within a couple years went and won the championship with it. Unfortunately, he died in a tragic, I believe it was a plane crash a year or two later. Yeah, and the best paint scheme on this list is actually a Kulwicki throwback. So we will get to some of the really important parts of that story later. But yeah, good looking paint scheme. Next is the number 22. This is Joey Logano, and it's a interesting throwback. It's actually a throwback to the 1971 F1 car of Mario Andretti. I like what they're doing there. I like how sometimes Penske will kind of go cross motorsport with their throwbacks. They'll do NASCAR throwbacks on Throwback Weekend, but they'll also mix in these IndyCar Formula One liveries as well, and that's what they've done with this one, and it came out beautifully. And then next in 11th is another Alan Kulwicki throwback. This was one of Kulwicki's first cars in the Cup Series, And Anthony Alfredo's number 38. Not much to say about this, except it's just beautiful. And now we're getting up into our top 10 paint schemes. So get ready as we count it down to the best one of the weekend. Okay, so in 10th place, we have the number 78 of BJ McLeod. This was a throwback to Joe Weatherly's number 78 that he drove in the 50s. And I don't know what it is about 50s throwbacks, but they are my favorite ones. Then in 9th, we have Chase Briscoe with his number 14 High Point Ford. And this is a throwback to racing legend AJ Foyt, who drove in NASCAR, he drove in IndyCar, he drove in Formula One. This was a throwback to one of his NASCARs, and really well done. They changed the font for the car, which is a must. I do believe in order to make a good throwback, you have to switch the font. You have to change the font to what you're throwing back to. So I very much approve of this one, and it takes 9th. Then in 8th, we have the number 00 of Quinn Houff, throwing back to John Andretti. 2 John Andretti throwbacks in this field. They didn't exactly change the number font for this, but I'm glad that they changed the angle of the numbers to go forward to match the original car. Very nice. And in 7th, this is when it started getting tough and it started getting close between all the throwbacks because they all look so amazing from this point on. This is the number 77 that Justin Haley drove. It's a throwback to Robert Presley. It also has a nice Mother's Day message on the hood. Wonderfully executed. They changed the font. They changed the color. Amazingly done. And now taking 6th is the Daytona 500 champion, Michael McDowell. He ran a throwback to NASCAR legend Bill Elliott's old Coors Light car. They wrote the freight auction sponsor logo in the font approximately of Coors Light, which is a must. They changed the font of the car, so again, I very, very much approve. Beautiful car. In 5th, getting in the top 5 now, the real good ones. In 5th is Tyler Reddick's number 8 car, throwing back to Marty Robbins' car from the Cup Series. He's racing for a records company right here. I like what they did with the hood, with the old-looking music album. Look very, very well done. This is one of 2 Richard Childress Racing throwbacks, and both of them are amazing. We'll get to the second one here in a minute. Taking 4th is the brand new Trackhouse Racing's Daniel Suarez, and this one looks beautiful. It's not a throwback to any specific car or anything like that, but they've thrown back the Camping World logo. The font looks like something you'd find on a car from the 50s or 60s. Beautiful car. The colors on it are really well done. I'm astonished with Trackhouse Racing. The people that design their cars this year are just on point because they have not missed with a paint scheme so far at all. Now taking 3rd is William Byron's throwback to an old Valvoline number 75. Numerous drivers ran the historic Valvoline car through history. Very well done. They changed the font of the car to match the old 75 font. They got the old Valvoline logo back. The angle of the lines by the numbers looks fantastic. And that brings us to our 2nd place. The number 3 of Austin Dillon, throwing it back to Fireball Roberts. This is another 1950s throwback, and I am absolutely crazy about it. The gold, the black, the red number, just fantastic. They got the old Bass Pro Shops logo on there, which looks beautiful. Fantastically done paint scheme. I saw it was competing in the top 10 at one point. He finished 16th. So good job to this team with that car. They were pretty competitive all day. And now, the moment you've been waiting for. The winner, in my opinion, of the 2021 Darlington Throwback Ranking is Corey LaJoie. in the number 7 car. This is the third Alan Kulwicki throwback. Here's a photo of the original car he's throwing it back to. And as you can see, there's almost no difference between these cars. I've never seen in the modern era a race team do a better job of replicating an old car. But that isn't the end of the story. This team, actually, at the beginning of the year, they acquired a second charter for their team and ran the number 7 with it with Corey LaJoie. When they made that move, they moved into a bigger shop. They moved into the shop where Alan Kulwicki himself, back in the day, in the 80s, built his race team up from the ground and went on to win a championship with it. So, and he's the one that made the 7 car famous, made this paint scheme famous. Really good to see that Corey LaJoie and this Spire Motorsports team really understands their roots in that race shop. I've never seen a more beautiful throwback. They even got the original sponsor, Xerox, which I think is a Valvoline brand. They got him to hop on board for this race. I've just never seen anything this cool on a throwback weekend. But anyway, that does it for the Darlington throwback rankings. We've got a very important announcement to go over. Last week, NASCAR unveiled the next generation car. Let's take a closer look at it. Okay, so NASCAR's next gen was unveiled last Wednesday, I think in Charlotte, North Carolina. And the next gen looks beautiful. It's very revolutionary. I'll be talking about the more technical aspects of the car at some point in the future. But it's absolutely fantastic. Let's take a look at the car a little closer, all 3 variants of it. Okay, so first we have the Chevy Camaro. This one looks fantastic. I love the test livery that they put on this car. The body shape of it is much closer to that of an actual road Camaro, which is what everyone was hoping for. You see the side-by-side photo of it here with a road Camaro. Pretty similar in size and shape, a little bigger, but pretty cool. Then we have the Camry. This is my least favorite of the 3. It's the one that doesn't fit into the muscle car, sports car profile NASCAR's looking at right now, so it looks a bit out of place with the Camaro and the Mustang, which we'll see in a minute. But it doesn't look bad. That grille is pretty realistic. Some of the proportions on this are a little more realistic. See the side-by-side here, it's not too far off, really. At least from some variants of the Camry. And then finally, the Ford Mustang, the most beautiful of all 3 of these cars. I don't know if it's just the test livery that they put this car in, but it just looks beautiful. The wheels on it, you see more road-like wheels. They switched to the Shelby GT500 for this car, as suspected. You got those new hood vents in the car. The window shape is much more realistic. The cab, the greenhouse of the car has a lower profile. It looks amazing. And here, this is a photo of it on the track at North Wilkesboro Speedway. You can see the rear diffuser on the car. That'll add rear downforce, a little bit of grip. That'll be cool. And yeah, here's the photo of it side by side with its road counterpart. This is possibly my favorite photo of this car ever. It's not entirely there, but it looks similar. It's not as far a cry from the road cars of today as the current car is. So I really appreciate NASCAR for stepping up their game on making this stock again, because their whole slogan for this next gen reveal was the rebirth of stock. Somehow they managed to do it. So kudos to them. That car looks beautiful. Again, later on I'll be going over more of the technical aspects of the car, but just know it's going to be amazing. The racing quality should be great. So that'll do it for today. I will see you all next week to review Dover and to preview Circuit of the Americas, my first in-person NASCAR race. I don't know exactly how I'm going to do the review from that. I may do a live stream from the track on my Instagram. Depends. We'll see what happens. I'll be getting some exclusive footage from the track, though I'm super excited about that. NASCAR Cup Series, Xfinity Truck Series, as well as IMSA's Lamborghini Series will be there all in one weekend. It's going to be fantastic, so I'm excited to give you all that footage from the track very soon. So I'll see you next week to preview that, and enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy the Dover race, and until then, this is Gunnison signing off with Spinning the Tires.